I had Jeff Booth on last week, who wrote a big book on deflation. I forgot the exact name of it, but he's quite a maximalist. And again, I've had Max Kaiser on the show, but it was back in 2013. He was trying to get me to buy Bitcoin. I bought some for $100, but I didn't buy enough, clearly. But when Jeff says, he says this, I'm curious to get your take on it. He said, Brian, Bitcoin is completely decentralized. There is no way to try to hack in that system. But he said, if I could get 100 people in the room and put a gun to their head, I could shut down another blockchain, is what he said. Now, maybe it's because they're using Amazon Web Services, or maybe it's this, or maybe it's that. But if they kidnap your kid and they got a gun to your head, Jeff said that, and he has some dark scenarios. He said they could stop one of these networks. And I didn't know what to say to that. What would you say to something like that, where they say, that's a very maximalist statement, but they say it's not decentralized enough. None of these things are decentralized enough to find a way to break them. And again, you're quite close to the fraud people. You know some of the things they can do. Is that a fair statement or not?
Everything, yeah, sort of, right? Everything is contextual. Again, like it's very hard to have a binary response to a lot of these, but in general, there are many blockchains that do have centralized components to them, which I absolutely agree with. So when in terms of their proof of stake ownership or ability to modify transactions, which we have also seen occur many times. Things on EOS or the XRP ledger, like that. There's been many instances of those sorts of things happening in the past. So like absolutely there are those vulnerabilities. However, I'm also the pragmatism in me. I actually think that even some of the decentralized networks still do have some vulnerabilities to where it's not this infinitely untouchable, like utopian world either. Depending on who you go after or who has access, there are some vulnerable, like non-zero applications. Like, so for instance, if, now Bitcoin actually got a little bit more decentralized with a lot of the movement out of China, but for quite a while, there were like 3 mining pools that controlled definitely a majority of the hash rate. So that would mean let's say there's 3 executives at every entity that could make decisions. So that would be 9 people. So there's a lot of counters to some of this, like, whether it's Bitcoin, Ethereum, otherwise, some of the maximalist thinking. I think maximalism in general is very unhelpful and is generally toxic for when you think that everything is solved by your thing. I don't think you're going to get very far in that, because the reality is there's going to be lots of other things that can do, and you could even make, I think, a strong argument that Ethereum maybe has done more for the growth of Bitcoin than anything else that's ever been done, maybe in history. And I probably agree with that statement, right? Like Ethereum, that's crazy to think about, but Ethereum has made Bitcoin more valuable than maybe anything else that has ever happened. Because think about what it's done. It's brought all the new talent, all the money. I mean, you look at the ICO madness and everything else, even right now, all the inflows are coming in this way. All the stable coins are built on that. And like, to just think that, oh, that's bad, we don't like it because it's not our thing and we want Bitcoin to rule everything else. Like, well, it's, very closed-minded. Someone's actually really helping you at the end of the day, and you're still just, frustrated and trying to say all these negative things. And it's not that they necessarily have to like the thing, but there's a lot more rising tide, lifts all ships, way more than I think people recognize, to where there's a lot of things that can be very valuable. But I think there's vulnerabilities to pretty much every blockchain. If you got really, really sophisticated and thought about what you could do to ultimately take something over. I think I did a thought experiment with someone recently, even on Bitcoin, which is, how much would it cost to take over Bitcoin, to like literally take over, because to get 50% hash rate, like what is the cost? Like, there has to be one. It can't be infinite, right? And maxis will say, "Oh, you can't do that. It's impossible." Well, we're humans and we live in a human world, so it's very possible. Because, like I even just said, there were 9 people before. So the way to do it, there isn't enough hardware to buy or chips to manufacture. We're already at like silicon shortages, so there's the allotment that can be developed for like ASIC miners right now is fully exhausted. So you can't just go make more ASIC miners. So that option would be out. But all of the ASIC miners that are out there, if you just tried to buy half of them, or whatever percentage you need. And these are miners or operators that have all these on farms all over the world. There's a number that they would sell them to you at. I don't know exactly what the number is, but let's say it's 10x what they bought them for, right? They'll probably sell them to you, right? They're capitalists like anyone else. Do you think they just like running all these like Bitcoin farms, like because that's the cheapest way to potentially generate Bitcoin? Like it's probably easier to buy it. So there's a price. And you could estimate just what it is. I mean, to literally buy out 50% of the miners. And I think in very, very rough math, not getting into it here, I was getting something like $100 billion, I think, was what I roughly calculated. And that could be right, wrong, but it's probably definitely correct in an order of magnitude. And so to a normal person, that's outside the range of what, you or I or even Jeff Bezos could probably do. And you run the risk of people knowing what you're doing and it's going to raise the price. There's other pieces. But if you're a state and you want to buy that and you want to try to figure something out, and especially when everything already was in China, it was a lot more shaky than I think people realized, where you could have bought people out. And like $100 billion to a large state, I mean, the US printed like 2 trillion, like or whatever, the past couple of years. So like that's very well within. Again, am I trying to say this is likely? Absolutely not. But is it non-zero potential? Sure, I think so. And I think anyone that stubbornly says, no, this is impossible, this can never happen, like, oh, I think is misguided or just not thinking what the future will actually be. And like, again, it's positive. Not to get into more complexity, but things around how people are so thoroughly convinced around, Bitcoin is, the greatest feature of Bitcoin is 21 million tokens that can never, ever be changed. It's like, well, sure, until we want to change it. And maybe we do want to change it someday. I'm not saying I want to change it, for the record, very, very clearly. But, what happens when the subsidy runs out or the subsidy is too low for the miners to actually care and write transactions to the chain anymore? That means security of the network starts to go down. So, and then in parallel, we're building Lightning Network, which what does that do? Oh, it enables like really, really low fee transactions. So how would the miners make any money? No, they don't have a subsidy anymore, which they're living off of, and they won't make any transaction fees. And are people going to use this to transfer stuff anyway? That remains to be seen. So there's a lot of unknowns of just what does the state of the network look like. So maybe people say, oh, let's just make the subsidy come back and we can do it in like a low inflation. Maybe there's going to be 25 million Bitcoins or whatever the number is. Or the miners just say, yeah, we'll just fork this ourselves and we're just going to move this all over. And there are 30 million coins now. And like, that's the way this is going to work. And then you can either stay on the old chain, which is super insecure because there's no funding to it, or this new thing that has more token. I don't know. And again, I'm not even trying to say that that's likely. I'm just trying to say that there are alternatives, again, that I think people put blinders on of, oh, this works and this is so perfect, where at the end of the day, we're people, these are economic systems, there's a lot of selfish financial motivation within them. That's something why Ether is also really compelling, because Ether is like the unit of currency that runs everything. So there actually is a lot of economic buy-in into the system. But the way that Bitcoin works right now, if you own Bitcoin, you have like literally zero shareholder value in the network. I mean, literally zero. Who are the people that control Bitcoin? It's miners and the Bitcoin core, or like devs. That's it. Like if you own Bitcoin, you can literally do nothing except participate in this ecosystem. Again, I'm not even meaning to say this is a negative thing. Like, so this is not like, oh, the rant if I don't like Bitcoin. I love Bitcoin. I'm one of the earliest Bitcoin adopters in the world. I probably spent almost more Bitcoin than almost anyone. And I still have a lot of it to this day, and I still use it all the time. So I am very much a Bitcoin proponent, but I just look at it realistically, and I don't try to put my head in the sand as an ostrich and then just try to like shame other projects or other innovations just because I think mine is best. And that it's just, I'm not very tribal. I try to look at it very realistically of where real value is coming from.